We gather here today not just to celebrate in rhetoric a remarkable event from America's past. The original Boston Tea Party on the 16th of December, 1773, was not simply a colorful episode that transpired more than 2 centuries ago under circumstances that are no longer relevant to modern Americans' lives and liberties. To the contrary, its history provides a lesson we must relearn in our own time and lays a path from oppression to freedom that we must follow in the near future for our country's salvation. Through the Boston Tea Party, colonial Americans emphasized in deeds certain truths of political philosophy and political science that retain perennial significance and applicability. Fundamentally, the Boston Tea Party was about the 2 greatest powers of government, in particular the power of the purse and the power of the sword, and who should control, exercise, and benefit from those powers. It demonstrated that the power of the purse can be controlled only by the power of the sword, and that the power of the sword must always remain in we the people's hands and theirs alone. The preservation of one's property as well as his life and liberty requires not only eternal vigilance, but the willingness and the ability to take immediate defensive action when dialogue and deterrence fail to fend off aspiring usurpers and tyrants. Today, Americans find themselves confronted by a problem analogous to, but far worse than the one that vexed our colonial ancestors. America suffers from pervasive taxation without representation that operates through a monopoly more far-reaching, dangerous, destructive, and vicious than the East India Company. This monopoly is called the Federal Reserve System. It includes not only the actual banking cartel, but also all of the parasitic, non-American, un-American, and even anti-American institutions, enterprises, and individuals, public and private, domestic and foreign, allied with and fattening off of it at common Americans' expense.
We give out money, we have no strings attached, we give out hundreds of billions of dollars, and we totally ignore what the Federal Reserve does by it issuing literally trillions of dollars, and yet this is the emergency legislation. We create these problems. We create them by doing things that are unconstitutional. We come up with these schemes and these expressions and excuses. At the same time, we don't address the subject of why do we spend money and why do we allow a monetary system to operate without any supervision by the Congress. That's where our real problem is.
Unfortunately, to eliminate the Federal Reserve System will not be as easy as burning the Gaspee at Namquit Point or dumping the tea from the Dartmouth, the Eleanor, and the Beaver into Boston Harbor. As the recent presidential election must now have taught even the dullest among our countrymen, real change, that is, actual reform, has nothing whatsoever to do with choosing one of the 2 major political parties' candidates over the other. Even if the 2 parties were not simply one party, the fascist party of supranational high finance and globalized corporate big business, depending upon party politics would amount to nothing more than playing their game of divide and rule. The time for political parties is gone, and good riddance. Now America needs a mass political movement based not upon political parties, special interest groups, and other antisocial factions, but upon we the people themselves. A movement that finds its inspiration, direction, and above all, legal and moral authority in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, because those documents are the embodiments of we the people's will, the statements of we the people's political power, and thus the guarantors of we the people's national independence, individual liberties, and economic welfare. So this must be a movement of and for self-government. Self-government can no longer be the theory on which this country operates. It must become the actual practice. For if Americans do not govern themselves, others will govern them, and in a way that serves those others' selfish interests at every good American's expense. Ultimately, I believe this movement must center on revitalization of the constitutional militia of the United States. For the Second Amendment instructs and admonishes America that a well-regulated militia is necessary to the security of a free state. And nowhere does the Constitution identify anything else as being necessary for America's security and freedom, or for any other purpose for that matter. Not Congress, not the President, not the Supreme Court, not the political parties, the militia of the several states alone. Therefore, Americans can disregard this unique declaration and direction only at their imminent peril. What then is the course Americans must follow to disestablish the Federal Reserve System and return this country to constitutional and economically sound money and banking? Well, the first step, as always, is extensive, comprehensive, and intensive public education to dissipate most people's ignorance and confusion concerning the subject of money and banking. All too many Americans have simply forgotten, if they have never or ever learned, what a real dollar, a constitutional dollar, actually is. And nothing better illustrates the plight of the average American than to ask him, what is a dollar? It's amazing what kind of responses you'll get. Of course, the first one is the George Washington Federal Reserve note. This is typically what people will identify as a dollar. But why should it be considered a dollar? Simply because the word dollar appears on it? Well, also, on it appears the word note. A note means a promise to pay, not the thing promised. Presumably, the thing this Federal Reserve note promises to pay is a dollar. So, is a dollar a promise to pay a dollar? Moreover, a statute requires that this Federal Reserve note be redeemed in lawful money. Presumably, the lawful money in which redemption is made is a dollar, because this is what the Federal Reserve note promises to pay. But if lawful money redeems this dollar, then the note itself cannot be lawful money. And if the lawful money is a dollar, then the Federal Reserve note cannot be a dollar either.
We have lost the brisk pace of diversity and the genius of individual creativity. We are plodding along at a pace set by centralized planning, red tape, rules without responsibility, and regimentation without recourse.